This class is for the Ilui Nishmat of my son, Elisha Meir ben Yaakov HaKohen.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand this around. If you didn't put your name on it, can you put your name and phone number so we could text you? And we have information for other, in case it's not a class or the class has changed or whatever have you. Okay?
Okay,
so anyways, this basically says it all.
Yeah.
There are many students. This is one. The Kamarna Rebbe was very, very hard to understand.
Okay.
I've tried reading his Perush on the Chumash. I don't know how she did it, and I asked her. I says, "How did you do it?" She went through a lot of texts. Listen, she's gone through certain texts. Many texts. Unbelievable, right? But not all, right? Like all of us, I haven't gone through all. Right?
You need to get it. It's right on your beard.
It's my, it's trained. It's a trained mosquito.
Okay.
Okay. So, where is it? All right. Any questions before we start? First, let's make a prayer. Okay, we have to make a prayer. You can repeat after me this pasuk. Okay, Gal Einai, which means V'abita Niflaot Mitoratecha, which means open my eyes and let me see the wonders of your Torah. All the time that we go into learning, we always have to pray that Hashem opens our eyes and we see the wonders of the Torah, because that brings us closer to Emunah and brings us closer to Hashem. Okay? So everything that we've been doing is here, we're just focusing on basically the same thing over and over. Okay? Which is basically how to deal with any adversarial issues that in our life. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the form of a person. Okay? It could be any unresolved issue in your life. And does anybody ever have any unresolved issues in their life? No. Maybe not. Okay? I did have a lady going like, Rabbi, I have no problems, right? Right? And I'm like, well, so, and that's okay. So then you have to elevate it. And you have to take it to Israel's problems. Okay? Because Israel's got plenty of problems. Okay? So if you don't see any direct interference in your life with anything, even past, present, even if it's an unresolved issue with your own physical body, or if it's not a person, boss, work related, relative, or anything like that. Okay, we go through every Rosh Hashanah. I was taught, before Rosh Hashanah, you make your little list. You got to go before God with a game plan, right? About what you're going to do in terms of your development, in terms of your tshuva, in terms of your self-actualization, to increase your potential, to maximize yourself, So a lot of times I know that people have the same game plan year after year. I'm going to change this, I'm going to change this. And a year later, lo and behold, it's the same thing. Okay? Don't worry. Okay? But here we're working on basically how to get angles, to view it differently. Because once you see it differently, you make a demand upon yourself to see it differently, so then your tone, your feeling tone, your energy changes. You feel different about it, and you're open to looking at different ideas, how to approach it. Okay? So we're working on different angles. We did discuss last week, I just wanted to go over one thing with you. We discussed about the Shekhinah last week. Literally translates as the divine presence. But the definition of the Shekhinah, as we saw, is much, much greater. We are children of the Shekhinah, so to speak. It is the collective souls of all of the Jewish people that is meant to be receiving this unbelievable divine pleasure. Okay, as we know that God made the creation in order to bestow pleasure, instantly has created this entity, which we are all part of, that is going to receive the pleasure. Now it's going to get too cold. Okay? I'm feeling it. Okay? So, the Shekhinah is this entity that we are all part of, and we know that it's in exile. And in our own personal lives, we might see things that go smoothly, and then, of course, we see in our own lives there are black spots. Some people have massive black spots, dark spots in their lives, a period of times. Some people have just a lot of them, here and there scattered. Nevertheless, they're called dark spots, which is basically a place where you don't necessarily see God and His goodness, right? And they manifest all the time in all places. Okay, so those could be our enemies, and they express themselves in different forms. So those are called the Shechina B'galut, the divine presence in exile. In other words, when you're walking and everything goes smoothly and everything's great, and you see the blessings of God, and you can go before God and you thank you for so much goodness, and it's awesome. That's the Shechina is not in exile, those parts. But then when you have the place where you don't see God's manifestation of the goodness, that's called Shechina in exile. So there's our own little Shechina in exile, in our micro, and then there's in the macro, which is Am Yisrael, even in their own country. People think, no, they're in the country. Am Yisrael is in the homeland. It's exile. And my Rebbe always told me that even in Israel, we're still considered in exile. And the proof of that is, he told us, you take an egg, you throw it at the church, and you'll be arrested in 10 minutes, and there'll be an international scandal, and they'll throw you in jail for 30 days, at least, right? Until you go and apologize to the Pope, or something like that, right? Meanwhile, they can throw eggs at the yeshiva, nothing happens. No one does anything, right? So, in other words, it's not so balanced, even in Israel, okay? So the idea was that certain masters, the tzaddikim, the righteous people, they get up in the middle of the night and they do what's called tikkun chatzot. Right? Literally translates. And I translated last week real funny. Midnight repair, right? But really it's not. It's, healing. I was going to say happy hour.
What is Hatzot?
It's the time, midnight. It's the time that the righteous and the scholars get up in the middle of the night and they pray on behalf of the Shechina, the divine presence, which is in exile. Okay? And all of the troubles and the calamities that we see in Israel is because of that. Okay? So it's very hard to get up, and the prayers are not so short. Okay? So my suggestion to you is to be part of that, because it is a period. That time is unbelievable divine grace. They say that God's presence is more present there in the middle of the night. There are many reasons, but it's known in our tradition that he's much more accessible for prayers, study, okay? For one reason, everybody else is sleeping and the phone won't ring. Just simple. But other than that, it is a period of grace. If you happen to be up in the middle of the night, getting a drink of water or using the restroom. So, my brother-in-law just said, you just say these three words and you're considered to have fulfilled your duty of participating, sharing in the pain of the Shechina, that the Shechina is in exile, and then basically you just say two words, Shechina B'galut. But you have to say an oi before. You have to grex. It's a very important thing to grex. Do you know what a grex is? What's a grex? Who knows?
To sigh, like to...
Now, I'm going to give you a special thing that it's not part of the book. Yes, I'm sorry.
Is the door open? I hear somebody at the door.
Maybe it's Eliyahu Hanavi. I don't know. In any case, Rabbi Nachman says an unbelievable rule, and you can all use this. There's a thing that Jewish people do. It's called a grex, a yawn, a sigh, not a yawn, a sigh. But he says there's tremendous power when you do that. The potential power in a grex, I don't know what the English word is. A sigh is not enough. Sigh is just, I'm talking about
The best is in Hebrew.
Okay. What? What's in Hebrew?
Anacha.
Anacha. That's great. I like that. Anacha. So in anacha, was it locked?
I don't know, the oi works for me.
Okay, whatever.
From the inside it was open, but I don't know, but they left.
Okay. So, anacha, this grex thing, he says, this is an unbelievable rule I'm giving you. It's very special, okay? He brings it down that what you do, if you have it in mind, if you see any lacking in your own life or in the world, when a Jew does this anacha, this grex, right? He breathes life into that situation that is lacking. He connects his soul, and that breath that goes out from him is not only his own breath, but is the breath of all of the righteous souls that we're all connected to. And as he breathes out, and he breathes into that situation and gives it life. So it's not just a sigh, it's much deeper. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, and you're in the middle, you're half asleep, and you just do a, oh, Shechina B'galut, the divine presence in exile, and then you go back to sleep, okay? You have fulfilled an obligation of mourning with the Shechina that is in exile, okay? So, in any case, that was enough that we've discussed with the Shechina. Now we're discussing, like I say, we're getting into looking at our enemies or adversarial situations, non-resolved issues with a different angle. And I like what someone said last week, Jane said last week, you have to look at it, it's a holy opportunity. Imagine that whatever it is that is in your face that aggravates you, you now turn it into a holy opportunity. Because what we discussed last week was basically that the evil comes, it's for a purpose, and it's for you actually to turn it into a chariot, a seat, a kisei, for good. Just like a chair supports a person or someone sitting on it, so also evil can actually be that stepping stone or support, an element that is involved in having the good exist. Okay, as we're going to see a little bit more. Okay, and we learned that from Paro. It says when Paro drew close to the children of Israel at the parting of the Red Sea, it says Paro hikriv, which means he drew close, but it also could mean he made to draw close. He made the children of Israel to draw close, meaning they saw him coming and they started praying and even jump in the water. Okay, so in other words, it was the pressure, but it caused an unbelievable manifestation to happen, and we're going to see the continuation of that. So we discussed also a little bit last week that I didn't finish, because I always like debrief after the class and say I didn't do that point and that point and that point. So we spoke about evil, and I gave you the raw definition of evil. Does anybody remember? Anybody in their notes? What the raw definition of evil is?
Lack of good.
No? That was one. Excellent. The illusion of non-God. We also have the other raw definition is will to receive. Okay? Or in Hebrew, ratzon lekabel. Don't forget, when God made a creation, in order to bestow his goodness to another, he instantly had to create something that was not part of himself. What was that thing that was not part of himself? Because he doesn't need to receive from anybody. He is everything. He created what's called a ratzon lekabel. That makes all of matter, all of existence is made. It's just like that the physicists break up everything into atoms. The kabbalists break it down into, it's all made up of ratzon lekabel. Okay? Will to receive. Now, there's extreme will to receive, a will to receive for its own sake, and that's where we see evil manifesting. In other words, a person wants X pleasure now. He doesn't care what he has to do to get it. Rob a bank, kill a person, torture, murder, etc., etc. That is the manifestation of evil. It means I want this pleasure now. I want what, even if he just wants, somebody's nagging him, and they keep nagging him, so he just wants silence, and he'll do whatever he can to get his silence, and it turns out to be, wicked, a wicked act. Okay, so really in the raw form. Now, the idea, though, is that we've been given in our own psyche, in our own souls, a portion of this ratzon lekabel, will to receive. We're stuck with it. Everybody has it. We would call it yetzer hara, evil inclination, okay? But the evil inclination has to be transformed. And we spend our whole lives, and thank God we got the Torah, because the Torah is the modern remedy for ratzon lekabel. Okay, the other remedy is the school of hard knocks, which is not so pleasant. We'd rather get smart, use wisdom, so we can avoid the pitfalls and not go to the school of hard knocks. Before the Torah was given, it was only one school, hard knocks, trial and error. You fall, you get up. You fall, you get up. You bang your head, you get up. Now there's the Torah, which basically is the map of how to navigate ourselves through this space-time dimension that we're all in order to avoid pitfalls, and not only that, but create something unbelievable. And as we are co-creators, we're meant to co-create that. So the Ratzon L'Kabel, the will to receive, has to be transformed. We're all given a little portion of clay, and you got to turn it into something. So the way it works is this. I explained there's something called a Ratzon L'Kabel, a will to receive for itself. That we say that is really evil or selfishness. And then there's something else called a Ratzon L'Kabel al Manat L'Hashpia, a will to receive on the condition that we're giving. And how do I explain that? Simply that is explained as a man, very wealthy man, he's in town. He sees an acquaintance, a rabbi who comes visiting, a scholarly person. He's visiting as a passerby, invites him into his house. They're having a conversation. They know each other. They've met before, and they're having a very nice conversation. So the host says, listen, I've got a whole bunch of food. I've got cake, right? It's only 3,000 calories a slice. I've got a bunch of food. Let me give you something to eat. The scholar is embarrassed, right? He doesn't want to take, and so, no, he says, no, thank you. It's okay. So they get talking a little bit more, and then finally the host says, please, I really want to give you, let me give you. I got servants. It's Shabbos leftovers. It's Sunday night, right? So, let me give you some food. So the person says, no, no, no. Finally, the host is imploring him. Finally, the host is actually in pain. That he's not, please, I want to give you. And then, only then, at that point in time, does the guest say, okay. And he sees all of a sudden that the eyes of the host open wide. He's so happy. He's so elated. He goes and gets all of his people to help and make an unbelievable meal. And he's so happy in serving this scholar, his guest. So what happened here? The scholar, the guest, he held back until he knew that his receiving, he was going to be giving through his receiving. Okay? So in other words, he held off until he realized that, wow, if I say yes, how happy it's going to be. So actually, it's a halacha. There's a law like this in Jewish law in the Gemara in Kedushin. It says that usually in order to marry a woman, the man has to give something. You always have to give something which is least a sheva pruta, right? Which is like worth about, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm among women. If I say it's 35 cents, y'all are going to throw something at me. Okay? Okay, he has to give something of some value to the woman. Until he does that, there's no marriage. It won't work. There's a weird scenario where actually if a woman sends a gift to a very important man, and the man receives the gift on the condition that he's going to marry that woman, it is a valid marriage. Odd. Wait a minute, it always has to be this way. Isn't that the rule in the Shulchan Aruch? This is different. Why? Because this dignified man, he doesn't accept gifts from everybody. Not everybody can get away with giving him a gift and him receiving it. If he receives that gift, that woman is so elated because he received the gift. So therefore, his receiving is as if he's giving. He's giving through his receiving. This is what we have to create in our journey, okay? Is the receiving that we have to do, we have to train it in order to do it only on the condition that we are giving through our receiving. It's in many forms, but hopefully we'll develop those later on. But the idea of turning this will to receive, we see how it has to transform, okay? So, once again, everything that we're experiencing is a holy opportunity for us, and we're working on changing that. Okay, so from that, we're going to go and continue on. I wasn't able to make photocopies for everybody. I'm so sorry. You can share, okay? So, but I might have a couple here, and some people took last week, and they didn't give it back. I have one here that we're actually going to start on here. I see it back down there, nobody has, so I'll pass it back down there. Otherwise, you could listen, okay? So we're starting on page 161, okay? 161. I have to start off with this. he brings down a quote from Sefer Yetzirah.
What page is that?
The Sefer Yetzirah, I hope I'm going to find it. I forgot where she quoted, and I didn't mark it in my book. Okay. In the book of, this is the oldest book that we probably have in Jewish tradition, if you're not familiar with it. It's called the Book of Formation, written by Avram Avinu. What?
Is it okay to read from it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Aryeh Kaplan made it where you'll completely lose yourself.
Oh, I have it in Hebrew. I thought it's not allowed to read from it.
Oh, no.
I don't know.
No. No, everybody reads from this. If Aryeh Kaplan did it, it's mutar.
Okay.
Okay, he's kosher. Okay? So, 6:4 I thought it was. 1 second. Here it is. All right. No, this is, sorry. We're going to start on page 161. Okay? Okay. So it says here, I'm just going to read you the whole Mishnah. Basically, this book is broken down into Mishnahs, and they're written in ways where it's like you got to meditate on it for like 7 years. Okay, each line. Okay. Oh, 245. It says, okay, which is the classic? This is classic Judaism, as we all know. Okay. So it says, also God made one opposite the other. Good opposite evil, evil opposite good. There is such a thing as good from good, and then there's evil from evil. Good defines evil, and evil defines good. And then it goes on the last line, good is kept for the good ones, and evil is kept for the evil ones. Okay? The focus they want to focus on now is good defines evil. And that's written in Hebrew is, Hatov mavchin et hara. Mavchin is, how do you define mavchin? It's like bochen, livchon. Right? Which is like test. Okay? Interesting word, test. Bechina in Hebrew is test. Okay? So here's the phrase here. On page 161, here on the dark here, I'm on this paragraph right here. So it says here, Ra mavchin et tov. Evil distinguishes good. That's how she chooses to translate it. In the sense that if there were no evil and villains, it would not be possible to recognize virtue at all. Good would be effectively non-existent. It is only through iniquity and evildoers who oppress the innocent that good, by contrast, becomes noteworthy and perceptible, and causes the good to ascend to even higher levels when the opportunity arises for it to now reveal its great light. The foregone conclusion is that there is no 100% evil in the world. All these godless and evil thoughts have pure roots. They come from a higher love, which we'll talk about. These lofty lights have fallen and are now manifest as illicit loves. Yet since their hidden roots are truly good, they will produce good by eventually awakening either themselves or their victims to an even deeper love of God. So here, she puts in the note here, evil is fallen love that must be transformed into love of God. Okay? Now, I don't want to get too much into what happened before creation. Suffice it for now, there were, once upon a time, before Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden in the 6 days, God made He made these vessels. He made these vessels to receive the light. But He made them in such a way that these vessels were going to break for a necessary reason. It's called the shattering of the vessels. It's a classic kabbalistic concept. So these vessels that got shattered for a good purpose, are now it became incumbent upon mankind to elevate these. This is really the formation of a free will. For us we have to have free will. It's such a necessary ingredient in this cholent of creation. You can't do without it. So God had to create distractions. He had to create the evil impulse. He had to create negativity. He had to create darkness. So the first opportunity that we have to see is, without this situation in front of me, if we can only see it, without this dark situation, this annoying situation, this ongoing thing that's going on in my life, unresolved issue, right? It is giving me an opportunity now to express greater potential inside of me. Imagine now seeing it like that. Whoever it is that's annoying you in your life, or whatever it is, You now have to look at it and say, I now have an opportunity upon me to now let this allow me to be a greater individual, to express a greater sense of self that I didn't have before. Okay? So this is what it means by evil distinguishes good. That means, just like simple, it's, you know, you can't have light if you don't have darkness for contrast. It's the union of contrast. Quite simple. So, yes, we understand darkness and light, but now we can understand in a different way there's evil and there's good. And really, the evil, in contrast, makes the good to be really good. Okay? It allows the evil to really be in the foreground and express itself in a way. Okay? So you can say, Baruch Hashem, thank God for this situation. It allows me to express the goodness that I have inside myself. Okay? So these vessels that fell before, you know, I'll illustrate in a real clear way. Okay? Abraham, who was the father of love, he was the real love guru. Okay? The first and only, really. So he was the one who always taught, you know, God's love in the world, and he raised Yishmael and he raised Yitzchak. Now Yishmael was considered to be the fallout of Avraham. So what do I mean by fallout, right? See, when he focused, you know, and he raised his kids, Yitzchak was the straight one. He was the one who was going to inherit. The fallout was Yishmael. Yishmael, it's known that he never chastised Yishmael. He was, you know, he didn't have his love balanced. It was just all love, too much love, right? And we know that a spoiled child, you know, goes wayward, as we even see today, by the way that they think and they feel the whole world is coming to them. And they feel that they have a right to whatever they want, because they were never, and they understand, they do understand when there's a solid wall in front of them or there's an obstacle, then they finally get the message, or a stick. Okay? But other than that, Yishmael was considered to be the fallout. In other words, too much love, right, gave birth to Yishmael. And Yishmael, as we know also, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. No, I won't going to say it. Anyways, too much love falls into illicit loves. The issue is this. The Baal Shem Tov brings down, if you have an attachment to something, anything that you love, so really you have to use that energy of love to elevate it to really a love of God. The best law that it's manifest is that you're not allowed to kiss your children in shul, in synagogue. That's a law. Anybody familiar with that?
To kiss your kids? Yeah.
Has anybody ever heard this before?
I've only heard not kissing,
it's
like even to kiss a woman when you walk into shul and you see them. I never heard about not kissing your children.
Children in shul, you should not kiss your children in shul.
Why?
No, it doesn't say that in Pirkei Avot.
But why?
Okay, because when you're in synagogue, you have to see your kid and you love your kid and you have such a desire to kiss your kid, right? But then you have to take that love that you have and you have to direct it to God, because the synagogue is to direct your love to God. And really you have to do that all the time. That means you can never kiss your kid again. No, you can kiss your kid outside the synagogue. At least though there's one place where it's a constant reminder that you have to elevate all loves. You love ice cream, so you elevate it. You love whatever it is that you love, right? You can use that love and the feeling. Don't forget, we learned many classes about the ink blot. I showed you guys that the ink blot showed us that, you know, not everybody experiences the same thing the same way, right? Oddly enough, some people I have come in contact with don't love chocolate. And I'm like, what is your problem? That is the 14th commandment. Don't you know the 14th commandment? And they go, no. When all else fails, go for chocolate. It's inscribed in stone.
Does the same thing go for grandchildren? If I knew they were going to be so much.
Grandchildren are like children. Anyways, yeah, right. I forgot where I was. Okay.
Chocolate.
Not everybody has the same relationship to everything the same way. So where does it come from? It doesn't come from the chocolate, right? Because not everybody is into chocolate, right? So it doesn't come from the chocolate. I'm just using that as an example, okay? Or coffee, whatever you want. Pick your pleasure, okay? It's not coming from that because not everybody experiences it the same way, okay? So where is it coming from? It's coming through us from God. The love comes through us. It doesn't come from the kid. It doesn't come. You have to know that. You can't drill it in enough. So therefore, we can't tell you, I mean, you should be doing it all the time. But at least you'll know in the synagogue there's this rule to keep you remembering that you have to elevate all loves. The same thing the Baal Shem Tov brings down with fear. This is a real one. Okay, I'm just going to the opposite. Okay? Yitzchak, he's on the left column. Considered to be on the left column in the array of the Sfirot. He represents din, right? Judgment in the world, restraint, right? He had a fallout. He had Yaakov and he had Esav. Esav is the fallout. Who was Esav? Esav was the epitome of fear. He was the mafioso. He brought mafia to the world. Organized crime. He was it, right? Edom, still it. Okay, Pope, little different robes. It's all mafia. Okay, in a different form. Okay? They instill fear, false fear, outside, external fear. That's just one example, but anything! And you really got to do introspection in yourselves, right? Anything you're even afraid of, even the slightest little things you're afraid of. Oh, if I do this, I might lose my job. Or if I do this, I might lose the relationship. Or if things that fear is also external. You have to take that feeling of fear and elevate it to only fear of Hashem. The Baal Shem Tov was told, 3 years old, he's by his deathbed. His father says to him, absolutely be afraid of nothing except God. And he held that rule. He was never afraid of anything. Okay, and he would go into unbelievable places and do unbelievable things where, never had any fear of anything. Because he elevated that fear to be in awe of God, to use that in his relationship. Okay? So that's what it means by, now we have in our world, we have all kinds of fallen loves, illicit loves, and you have illicit fears. And they're all for us to elevate. Okay? Once again, an opportunity for us to see it in a different way and elevate it. Okay? So, going on here. So this is what Sefer Yetzirah intends by its mysterious claim. Good defines evil, and evil defines good. If not for the contrast provided by iniquity and evildoers, it would be impossible to discern their opposite. Good would be completely invisible and effectively non-existent. Because, it's vanilla ice cream. If the whole world is vanilla ice cream, Okay. Instead now, with the contrast of bad, we can enjoy the gift of good. In fact, one could even say that it is the criminals and evil-minded oppressors that enable us to appreciate the value, gift, and pleasure of good. Even if that one little thing, one little hair. Okay? And we hear things in the news all the time, and terrible things we hear. I don't listen to news anymore. I just get it from people who tell me, like Susan. Right? Because, well, come on. First of all, I don't know. I'm not going to get personal opinions about news. My dad is a news junkie, It's entertainment. They have to throw at you what sells. You have to just be consciously aware of it, that what they're trying to throw at you and throw at the world, and they're doing that, and it's crazy. In any case, if you do see and you do happen to hear in the news about people wow, thank God that we're not like that, or thank God that we have the Torah. Okay? The more intense the evil, the more radiant and precious the light appears, which is really what's happening now. The Ishbitzer Rebbe he said 150 years ago, when Mashiach comes, you'll see the good get better and the bad get worse. And we see it's getting so defined now. There's no more, the gray is disappearing. It's either you're on this side or you're on this side, and it's becoming clearer now, okay? It's like in your face. It's like crazy. The darker the backdrop here, the more luminous the glow. Simple. Okay? So you look at the evil or the whatever it is, our enemies, you're saying, okay, great. It's giving me an opportunity to shine greater. And when evil catalyzes a positive effect, at least it's getting me to appreciate good, right? At least this, whatever the tyrant boss or the criticizing friend or whatever it is, at least it's getting me to appreciate. Okay? So when the evil catalyzes a positive effect, its spark gets raised. So you actually elevate the evil itself, which is always good. It has good in it. Like I said, these vessels that fell before creation, right? They're meant to be elevated. They have good in them. All darkness, in the most darkest acts, my father-in-law would tell me, inside layers and layers and layers of charcoal and black hard charcoal is a diamond. There is light in there. We just have to work through it to get it out. And he gave the great examples of the dark acts of the daughters who lived with Lot's daughters, who lived with him in a cave, right? They gave him wine and they got pregnant from their father, which is like clearly a dark act. And yet what came from them? Root. All right? Who the Mashiach. And not only that, the Mashiach has many more dark tales on his path, right? With Tamar and Yehuda. Here's Tamar, who's supposed to marry Shelah, the third son of Yehuda. He doesn't call her, right? So she has to dress up like a prostitute, hang out in the crossroads, seduce him, get pregnant, and she has parrots and parrots and Zichri, right?
But she didn't just go with anybody. She waited for Yehuda.
Yeah, she was, but what was his
family.
Where was he at? Okay.
He didn't know.
Okay? He thought it was really holy. Could have been. Okay? There's lots of commentaries who try to explain. Okay? In any case, the rabbis would say it's not 100% kosher here. Okay? Right? And there's others. Okay? But here we see that even in the darkest of charcoal and the darkest of acts, there is that element of light. And look at that light. The darker the act, the greater the light. It's almost weird. But now